Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you?
Not able to hear you. Wait.
Audible? Mm, 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 mm. Is it better now? Not audible? Am I am I audible now?
एक बार वापस से बोलेंगे.
Nitin? No? Wow.
Can you hear me? I still can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Now I can't hear you.
Abhi, can you hear me? अब एक बार बोल के देखिए शायद I can hear you now. Now can you hear me?
Should we restart?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Can you nothing?
Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Okay, you can hear me now. Great.
I can hear
Yeah.
you. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
I can't hear you. So you can rejoin. Well, good evening, everyone. I think our jinx of technology has has struck
Technology and
again.
all over the.
Nitin,
Can you hear me now?
can't hear you again. Ah,
Can you try rejoining once?
oh my God. Let's try again. Can you speak now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Super.
Hallelujah.
Very good. Okay, good.
So
And
I,
I
I
see
was
he's
I was
also fine now.
I was just saying out here how our amazing luck with technology that we had tried to avoid from Instagram somehow seems to have found its way here as well. But
Yeah,
I
but
think
this is still better. We're at least able to go live.
yes,
Instagram, so we had issues
yes.
altogether going live. So I think this is okay.
Yes, yes. So again, brilliant to meet you again, Nitin. I guess we can now possibly look at calling this as a proper podcast itself into different topics that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's actually a good idea term it that way. And maybe going forward, we can have it like two, three episodes declared well in advance so that people know what topic
Right,
we are planning to talk about.
right. I think this was more of our experiment to see if we are able to even hold our appointments and
Yeah.
get together in that specific time. So wonderful. And we have come together again with the usual interest into things around mind, mental health, and today's topic is emotional management. And this has been emotions and feelings. Nitin, I mean, obviously, you must are as aware of it. But in my field, in my work area itself, right, feelings have been one of the biggest revelations, right? And when I'm talking about feelings as a revelation, I'm talking about the articulation of feelings. And this is practically, it was a non-existent concept for me for the majority of my life. I knew I was sensing things, I was experiencing things, but thinking about naming those feelings out and that it can actually be of help, I mean, is it has been one of the biggest revelation for me. And I'm hoping that in today's discussion, we are able to kind of bring to for what do we mean when we are talking about emotions? What do we mean when we are talking about feelings? Why is it so important and relevant in today's conversation around mental health that you cannot not speak about feelings? We had spoken about men's mental health last time, and I think this was kind of one of the topics that we were referring to in a way that as men we are. It's almost a big part of a vocabulary that doesn't exist for a lot of us. So I'm hoping that today's conversation we are able to actually see that there is something known as feelings and emotions. Everyone has them. It's not that simple statement like, oh, I'm not an emotional person. Like how ridiculous a statement that is. And then trying to maybe also understand that there is something known as alexithymia, where the articulation and why it is so difficult for us to even relate to this wishy-washy, touchy-feely subject of feelings. And is there a way that we can objectively build this, work with this, and what is the benefit of it?
So let me first start from feelings and emotions, right? So how do we differentiate between the two? Are they the same? Are they different? And so on. So the way I look at it, and I think this has been of huge benefit to us, both in terms of self work and work with clients, is the understanding that feelings can be both physical feelings and emotional feelings. And being able to distinguish between the two is a good starting point, because it's a lot more easier for people to connect with the physical feeling because they're more tangible.
Right.
Especially for people who don't understand emotions, who don't understand feelings, and they're like, I don't feel anything, I don't experience any emotions. It may be a good idea to first look back and check, can you feel certain sensations in your body?
Right. So this is the first step you're kind of pointing to at, okay, where are we kind of looking at? This is us kind of adjusting our lenses. Okay, guys, what do we mean? Where do we need to begin looking at when we are talking about emotions and feelings? And Nitin is essentially saying, let's first start with body. And please go ahead.
And the only reason why I'm saying that let's start with body is because body sensations are more tangible. So, for
Right.
example, when you put your hand on the table, you can feel the surface of the table on your hand.
Right.
So, to that extent, it is a lot more easier and um, natural for you to be able to recognize those feelings, at least for most of us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, as an extension of this, once you understand what physical feelings are, then the next step is emotional feelings. So, any emotion that you experience in your mind, anger, happiness, sadness, joy, and you can take like your pick. All of those emotions that you're experiencing in your mind then becomes emotion. And
Right.
most of those emotions, when they are very powerful, will also leave a physical feeling imprint.
Right.
So sometimes it may so happen that you're experiencing certain emotions, you don't know how to verbalize it, right? But even if you don't have the vocabulary to verbalize the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
you can begin by witnessing what are the physical sensations that you're experiencing as a part of it. So, for example, a lot of times when people say that, I feel very sad, they will, when you ask them, all right, so how are you feeling? And if they don't have the vocabulary, they'll say, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable.
Mm.
You ask, can you notice the discomfort in your body somewhere?
Mm.
I feel this kind of heaviness in my chest.
Mm.
Now, that physical sensation is easier for them to verbalize as opposed to the emotional feelings. And primarily, that's only because the emotional feelings have a vocabulary of their own. And
Yeah.
most of us are not trained in the vocabulary.
Right. Right.
Right?
So to start with here itself, right now, this is where usually we would either when we are talking about this physical versus mental part, that so we are essentially talking about something that has this almost dual existence, right? When we are talking about emotions and feelings, this wishy-washy thing that we are talking about something that has almost this dual existence. It's initial part of it, which is again when we are talking about that these are emotions of that physical emotions. What we mean by that is essentially these are hormonal changes that are essentially happening in you whenever there is any stimuli, right? Anything and happening in your environment and a situation that requires you to act in any form or shape, right? Your body processes this information, this stimuli that you have got, and responds with giving you the chemical dosage that is required to kind of deal with that stimuli situation, right? If I can just break that part even further down, right? So what we are seeing, stimuli, body recognizes that I need to do. I'm hearing yeah, it's gone. The body recognizes, right, this is a particular task. It needs this particular energy, this amount of energy, and this type of energy to deal with it, right? And this is also how we define trauma later on as well. But what is happening? This chemical reaction response that happens in our body also creates sensations, right? Just the way Nitin, you mentioned earlier about heart rate increasing, your breath speed may change, you may start sweating, you may feel a knot in your stomach. All these you may find your chest is feeling heavy. All these sensations are also associated with these chemicals and the chemical change that happens in you. But while this is a physical manifestation of the chemical, the mind, which is also a tool that you have, is also impacted by this, right? Any change that is happening in your external or internal environment also needs to be corroborated by this system that you are carrying, the software that you're carrying, and that corroboration that is happening, right? If that is articulated, that is called a feeling. Or what we talk about in terms of the mental feeling that we are talking about, like
the emotions.
Define it. The physical part is emotion, and this one, the mental experience of it, and then the articulation of it are the feelings.
So actually that depends in most, so depending upon which school of thought you're looking at, the easier terminology is emotions are connected more with the brain, and feelings, physical feelings, are connected more with the physical body. So
Right.
the vocabulary then becomes emotional feeling or physical feeling. Emotional feeling associated to what you're experiencing in your mind, physical feeling what you're experiencing in your body. Like you mentioned, there is a connection between the two.
Right.
Right? It's just that the texture of it, the verbalization of it, the vocabulary for it are all slightly varying and different.
Right. And how is this helpful? Like knowing that, okay, I am feeling this way and being able to articulate it. Is it even needed? Is it even something that is helpful? If it is, and like even for the ones who go around saying I am not an emotional person, is it a helpful strategy, or in fact I would say something that you cannot not learn in this modern day and age? It is something that is extremely vital for you.
So I'm skeptical of saying something is so vital that you cannot do without. I'm
Right.
sure there are always alternate ways of being able to do certain things. Having said that, this is a useful tool to have for sure.
Right.
Right? Now, how would it help?
Hmm.
So think of it this way. Right now, if I'm experiencing a particular, so let's say I'm getting angry and I'm constantly engulfed by that anger. Right? I'm going deeper and deeper into that anger. Okay? At one point, that anger becomes my identity. And you will actually notice people telling you that I am an angry person.
Mm.
Right? There's nothing really called as an angry person.
Mm.
But we start identifying with that emotion, and once you start identifying with it, that identity takes a life of its own. And you will notice yourself being able to, you will notice yourself reliving that identity whether you like it or not.
Right.
Now, the moment I say, I feel angry, so it's not just about verbalizing the fact that there's an emotion. It's also the manner in which you're verbalizing it. There's one, I am angry. There's second, I feel angry. Now, the moment you say, I feel angry, what you're really doing is you're realizing, all right, I exist, anger exists, I am someone who's currently feeling this anger. So
Right.
I am more than this anger.
Right. So
In
in
that
a way,
sense,
you
when
are
we go back to
essentially
identity,
right, right,
our
right,
identity becomes bigger
right,
than the identity of that anger.
right.
And now that anger is just one of the feelings that I'm having.
Hmm.
That distance provides me with an opportunity to see what I want to do with it.
Right.
Plus, also, it's a good distraction. See, imagine this: if I'm in a moment where I'm feeling very angry and I'm going deeper and deeper into that anger, two, when I actually remind myself, you know what, I'm feeling angry right now. I've gone away from what was making me feel angry, which would make me further angry probably, to just verbalizing that I'm feeling angry and focusing on the fact that I'm feeling something rather
Hmm.
than what was making me feel what it is, what I'm
Right.
feeling right. We
Right.
can do that later, but the first step is it just helps me create a separation.
Right. So, and it's just to kind of kind of get that, you mentioned there's this cyclical nature as well that you mentioned. When there is the feeling, the mental part of it, the feelings are coming. You mentioned how I am an angry person, that identification is happening, and a cyclical action is also happening where I don't just stay angry. I'm not angry just now. I keep getting angry again and again, right? So this is where that cycle of that repetition is kind of happening as well. So what you're essentially trying, and this is also where a lot of Indian philosophical thought will converge as well, where whatever we are feeling, we try, there is a sense of creating a disconnect or a distance between the feeling and me, and thereby allowing me that small space of consciousness where I may be able to make a choice.
But that's exactly the point, right? In most cases, when we are what stops us from managing our emotions? That in the moment when you're experiencing those emotions, we get so sucked into them that for us, those emotions become us. So for me to be able to manage something, I need to be bigger than that. So I have to see that distance between me and that particular feeling that I'm having.
Right.
Right? Again, this is not to say that you should not feel it. Okay? This is just to realize that I'm feeling it, but that's it. I am feeling it.
Right. Now.
And that's also where mindfulness now comes into play. A lot of times when people say mindfulness as a way to be able to manage emotions.
Hmm.
Why mindfulness works? Because the moment I start witnessing that anger, I am seeing that that anger exists and I exist. Both of us have our own existence. And now the mindfulness helps us create that separation.
Right. Right. And when we have reached there, now I'm able to see my feelings, for example, right? And obviously we are just going to fast forward this part, right? But then there comes this interesting conversation where I don't want to feel negative feelings. I only want to feel positive feelings, right? There is the eternal pursuit of happiness, that we kind of, so this labeling of feelings and emotions into positive and negative becomes an interesting way to kind of explore it as well. Because if we are going to kind of talk about emotional management, but then classify some of these emotions as positive and some of them as negative, what are the connotations that kind of that brings up?
But
Yeah.
Sachin, to be fair, this is a wordplay, right? The very fact that we are saying emotional management means we are saying we need to manage emotions,
Right.
which basically means that not managing emotion is a problem.
Right.
So आप उसको problem बोलो, positive बोलो, negative बोलो, functional
Right.
बोलो, dysfunctional
Right.
बोलो.
Right. I'm not talking about the management part of it. I'm talking about a bit more basic. Ki anger
I understand.
negative emotion hai. I don't want. I will not be angry.
I understand. But my point is the moment I say I need to manage an emotion, management itself assumes that there's something wrong with what I'm feeling and therefore I need to manage it.
Right.
Right? Malab, if you were to consider all emotions completely positive to whatever degree you're feeling it,
Hmm.
so what's the point of managing them? Why are we even talking about management?
Right.
So management by definition starts from a place that when you feel an emotion to a particular extent,
Hmm.
it can lead to certain challenges.
Right. So I'll tell
Right?
you where I'm coming from in this.
So I'm coming back to anger now, right?
Please.
But the reason I want to clarify this is because many a times we say emotions are um, that no emotion is negative, and then we also say we need to manage our emotions. And there's a contradiction that a lot of people are not able to grapple with. Then, so why are we talking about management, emotional management? So I'm just clarifying that the concept that there are certain things that are, for the lack of any other word, negative, right? is a terminology you're using to explain that certain things can have certain side effects.
Okay.
That's
Right.
about it. Now, coming back to anger and
Hmm.
happiness and
Hmm.
positive and negative,
Hmm.
but only because we are saying that certain emotions can have negative connotations
Hmm.
doesn't mean that anger has a negative connotation and excitement doesn't have a negative connotation.
Right.
You can have people who are super excited, and that super excitement can be as negative for them as can be super anger,
Right. So
right?
this is the part that I was referring to, right? It's not that any particular emotion is positive or negative. In that sense, ki this trying to walk away from a particular feeling, no matter what level it is on. When we are talking about emotional management, what I'm referring to more is about the overwhelmness or the exhaustion part of it. It's the extremes that we are talking about of these emotions and feelings, where what is happening very often is if I build up this thought process. I'm not calling every emotion positive either. I'm talking about this bifurcation that is also a challenge at an initial phase, right?
Correct.
That
So this was not about you. This was to clarify, because a lot of times when we talk about positive and negative, then
mm,
people
mm,
also start questioning. So then, what is the point of emotional management? So to
right,
clarify that when we talk about emotional management, we are acknowledging the premises that certain emotions beyond a particular point can lead to certain challenges. What
right,
we are questioning or what we are disputing is that you can't say that emotion A at beyond a particular point will become negative and emotion B will not. Or emotion A at any level will become negative and
right.
emotion B will not. So that's the distinction that we are trying to
Perfect.
create.
Perfect. So just being
Now,
able to look at it objectively, that every emotion, every chemical, every type of energy you are experiencing at that time has its own use or misuse, depending on, again, the stimuli, the response, what is expected, and all of those things. So it's a much more complex thing than it just being a, labeling it as a positive or a negative. Like very often I
so
see
actually,
shame.
I'll put it this way. It's actually a lot more simpler. We end up overcomplicating it.
Exactly.
We are the ones who are looking at positive way, negative way, functional, dysfunctional. Emotions are emotions, period. Now, the
Hey,
moment you stop over here, this is simple. You don't have to apply too much of your mind.
exactly.
And now you just need to see that, all right, emotions are emotions. At what level am I experiencing it? And whether that experience is helping me or hindering me. If it's helping me, I continue doing it. If it's hindering me, then logic says that I need to do something about it. It's as simple as that. It's just that we have a desire to be able to quantify everything, and then we want to be able to describe everything. तो उसमें वो होता है.
Stories आ ही जाएंगे. But awesome. So we are kind of now looking at, when we are talking about emotional management, we are essentially trying to see, not trying to create a framework that this is the amount of emotion that you need in any particular situation. However, having this more fluid understanding of emotions and feelings, where being able to utilize it for the purpose, knowing when to utilize it or when to manage it or control it. And one of the things that you've mentioned here, it starts with maybe a mindfulness activities and other things. Now, um what positive impacts can a person expect if they are to, develop this vocabulary or do work in this space of understanding one's own feelings, emotions, or that articulation part?
So there are different theories on it, right?
Okay,
I will tell you the way I work with it, the way I
please.
use it with myself, and the way I use it with clients around.
Perfect, perfect.
Uh, for me, every emotion that we experience is trying to bring something to our awareness,
So
right?
you're referring to purpose of feelings here?
The purpose of feeling that if I'm feeling something, then that so okay. So I come from a background where the idea is there is a lot of respect and intelligence associated to unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm experiencing an emotion, right? And I'm not consciously choosing to create that emotion. It's
Right,
being created automatically in my system.
right.
So to that extent, it's being created by the unconscious. Now, if unconscious is so wise, it can't be doing something randomly.
Mm,
So it has to have a reason why that particular emotion is being created. Now, I may not understand the reason.
mm,
I may not be able to make use of that reason.
mm,
The intensity, the exaggeration of the emotion may keep changing because of multiple factors, but that
mm,
emotion exists for a reason,
mm-hmm.
right? So when you are able to understand the emotions well, okay, it gives you an understanding of what that emotion is trying to do.
Hmm.
There is a movie, Inside Out. It's
Right.
a children's movie, right? Part one and part two.
It's
The
brilliant. I'm like, we don't need mental health professionals after you watch the movie.
correct. We still need mental health professionals to be able to help you
I'm,
manage that.
I know,
If
I'm
we
just
can
kidding.
understand, we are good to go. It's a brilliant movie to keep in mind, simply because it really, in very simplistic way, helps you understand how every emotion is serving a purpose.
Right.
And that's the reason why understanding emotion becomes important. So many a times when we are working with clients, for
Hmm.
example, or even when I'm working with myself, I look back at what emotion I'm feeling to
Hmm.
understand what purpose it serves.
Hmm.
The model is quite simple, that what would be the sources of emotion that I experience?
Hmm.
I will either experience, especially so called negative emotions,
Hmm. Hmm.
experiencing those emotions either because I have done something wrong,
Hmm.
others have done something wrong,
Right.
situations have not turned out to be the way I wanted them to be,
Or the future
or
is messed up.
something about future that bothers me.
Right.
I have made some mistake.
Hmm.
Generally, the emotion that I experience are labeled as guilt, regret.
Right.
And what is this guilt or regret trying to do? It's simply bringing to my awareness, you have made a mistake, please don't repeat it again.
Right. But then I try to avoid the situation itself. Or
I try to avoid the situation, I try to avoid the guilt or the regret,
because
right?
guilt is such a negative
Basically,
feeling.
which is such a negative feeling, which basically means I'm not learning from it,
Right.
which means the chances that I'll end up making the same mistake again are very high. So this is one example that once you understand the emotion, it becomes easier
Hmm.
for you to be able to understand its purpose and see what needs to be done to learn from it, to address it, and to go forward from there.
Wonderful.
So just give me one moment, huh?
So, in this particular part where we have been speaking about purpose of feelings itself, we are kind of now referring to essentially what sort of challenges can a person, in terms of experiencing situationally, how may they perceive any challenge, where they may perceive the challenge as, oh, it's something that I did wrong, it's something that someone else did wrong towards me, and I will have feelings for that. That the situation around me, like for example COVID happened and the situation kind of got messed up and out of control for me, this may lead to a certain set of challenge problems. And fourth being where I'm kind of unsure about the future, I'm concerned about the future, I don't know, whatever the challenge is, it's not in my immediate environment, it's something that I perceive will happen to me in the future. And in that example sphere you were talking about, if coming back to, if I were the one that is the reason for the challenge and problem in my life, usually the feelings one may experience, this we are talking about the mental part, that you will obviously experience a physical, emotion, or the changes, chemical changes and all of that that we had spoken about earlier. But the mental representation of it is what you will experience as guilt, right? And this guilt that you're experiencing has a purpose. What we mean by that is that this emotion, this feeling coming up as a mental, right, there is a computation that has happened in the unconscious that you were referring to, and through that computation the result that has come out is, here your chit is guilt. Now if that has come up, the first thing to consider is, what is this energy, this chemical, this ticket asking me to do? And very often what we may end up doing is, if I'm thinking that this ticket is a bad ticket, I shouldn't have this ticket because of whatever reasons, I will avoid it, I will try to ignore it, whatever reasons. However, Nitin is talking about how this may have bigger meaning. When I'm not trying to be all wishy-washy here, a more meaning behind it, where if Nitin you could tell us more about what can be the purpose of guilt.
Take a simple example, right? Let's say um, I signed a contract
Right.
with someone without reading the contract.
Okay. Like any phone, any software, anything in our life nowadays.
Okay. Now, um, but phone software, they're still, matlab, the amount of risk involved is relatively less. But let's say I'm signing a business contract with someone. I signed that contract. I did not read the paper because I blindly trusted the other person.
Mm.
The company does well, and the person uses those exact papers to throw me out. Right? Now I'm feeling very guilty. That why did I not read the papers? So
Right.
I'm feeling angry about him, about what he has done, but I'm also feeling guilty about why did I not read the paper?
It is my fault. I have
It
acknowledged
is
in
my
my head
fault.
that I messed up here. I goofed up here.
Right. So now the moment I start feeling that guilt, what is that guilt telling me? That all right, you're angry with what the other person may have done, but you also need to look at what you could have done differently.
Mm.
Which then means that if I really understand this and learn this, then the next time when someone visits me and tells you to sign a document, I will read it. Now, if I learn this and if I start incorporating this learning in my life, the guilt by itself may actually start coming down dramatically because its purpose for me is served.
Right. So I'm
Right?
making those necessary
Beyond that,
changes in my life. That guilt essentially was coming up, making me uncomfortable. What it was telling me, bro, work on this part. I am not here to pester you or anything, but right, you need to kind of look at this part. If you're not going to look, I'll keep coming back. I'll keep coming back with more and more pressure every single time. But the moment you start working on it, you actually, instead, for example, very quickly, someone may have taken revenge, right? Oh, I this thing, bad happened to me. I was stupid here, but I will punish him to make sure something like that. This is us really not taking the right message from that feeling itself. Would you say that?
see again, right message, wrong message, it's kind of very difficult to say because you don't know when you're taking revenge, then you will have this quality that acha, there's something that the other person could have learned. So for me, it becomes very simple.
Right.
How do I know that I have learned what I was supposed to learn? That learning should be applicable in my life going forward. Now, even if I take revenge from someone else, that doesn't still stop me from not signing a paper without reading it because I have not learned from it. So I can keep taking revenge in my life, but I can keep signing papers without reading. Whenever I learn from it, when I actually don't repeat the same mistake again.
Perfect.
Now, in general, once that happens, then you will notice that the degree of guilt starts coming down. If the guilt persists after this,
Hmm.
then it's simply an indicator of stored guilt which you can release through multiple release processes. There are a lot of cathartic processes. You can just write a letter to yourself and do that. But what most people end up doing is they do the reverse. They feel guilty. So either they will ignore the guilt completely or they are relatively more aware. So they
Hmm.
understand that I can't not feel the guilt. I need to acknowledge the guilt. I need to respect the guilt. So I do all of that without learning from it. So
Right.
I keep writing letters to myself every 6 months because I feel guilty about what I've done.
But I haven't made the necessary change in my life.
Correct. And that is the reason why that understanding of emotion becomes
Your
important. It's not
microphone.
just about sorry, it's
Your
not just
microphone.
about
I think there's some disturbance in the microphone.
am I audible now?
Your voice is coming, but also there is some feedback in the back, like a mechanical sound is happening. Hello, you wanna try speak?
Is this by any chance better now?
No. I'm not sure if the audience is able.
Is
No.
this
Audience.
okay? Any of you who are watching us, please let us know if the
Now
voice
it's
is
gone.
clear for you or not. Yeah, all right, super, perfect. So where was I? So the idea is that it's the question is not about releasing the emotion, ignoring the emotion, but you also need to learn from it, right? And unless you help the emotion serve its purpose, it will keep coming back. And then when it comes back with a vengeance.
Right. Now, this is where the concept of wonderfully you have shared how, each feeling has a purpose, but then there is also the management aspect of it is there is a part about feeling that feeling. There is a part about the lesson that it is asking you to learn and make a change in your life. There is a part on that these feelings get stored in you, right? That has come out as well, and that these feelings can be expressed, they can be released is the term you use. So because I think these four parts become a very important aspect of emotional management. What are the steps you are going to do? I mean, you mentioned a method in which you spoke about writing a letter. That's a way form, right? But then in this emotional management, I think we have kind of spoken about the feeling aspect of it. We have spoken about the purpose of it. Can we also now look into the storage? This what do you mean when you say that these feelings can be some of this can be feelings that are stored feelings in you, that have been in there for in you for quite some time, and it can be something that is released as well. So maybe through an example or something that you could share.
Okay. So before I come to that, just to
Sure.
summarize this, in the way we work,
Hmm.
for any deeper emotional work, these are the following components.
Right.
Identification of the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
release of the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
replace it with appropriate replacements.
Hmm.
Learn from that emotion
Hmm.
and apply the learning in your life.
Perfect.
Any deep emotional work would include all five components. For each component, you may use different processes. Okay, for example, someone who is using English may want to use the word anger for an emotion. Someone may want to say gussa. So, what verbalization I'm not getting into, you can choose what vocabulary works for you.
Right.
But there would be some way for you to be able to understand what is that emotion that I'm experiencing.
Hmm.
Similarly, for releasing, there are plethora of techniques available, right? Releasing is something that you probably a practitioner will be better equipped to help you
Exactly.
do. And then learning and application of learning. So all five of them are extremely important. Now, coming to your question about storage, right? Think of your body as a bucket and your emotion as drops of water. Every time you experience an emotion which is not expressed, which you've not been able to fully
Which you had to
experience and express.
suppress, which you had to kind of,
Correct.
you couldn't react the way you wanted to at that time, right? Hmm.
So all those emotions you're suppressing are getting filled in that bucket, right? So initially the bucket is empty.
Right.
The emotion comes, it fills, then thoda or fills. Now this can take a long time for certain people. Now, when this is happening, where you're suppressing the emotions, you
Mm-hmm.
suppress and then you get on with your life the next day. And you feel that suppression is working for you.
Right.
Right?
You may even
Because there's no
feel that
long-term
I'm not
impact.
suppressing anymore. I forgot. Like
Ah,
it's already part of.
correct. So our understanding then is that oh, I've not suppressed it. I've just made sense, made peace with it.
Right.
When what I've really done is I've suppressed it, the bucket has enough space for those emotions to be stored, and therefore I am not seeing the impact of those emotions right now.
Right.
This keeps happening, keeps happening, keeps happening, but at some day the bucket
पाप
will
का
fill
घड़ा
up.
भर गया.
भर गया. अब जहां वो घड़ा भर गया, right? Let's say in that moment something changes and my life actually improves. So अभी घड़ा भर गया, but things in my life are going on well.
Right.
There is a period where all things are going on smoothly, and then something really small happens. One drop of water, that water spills over.
कलश का कलेश हो गया.
अब वो कलश का जो कलेश हुआ उसके अंदर देयर इज एन आउटबर्स्ट एंड लेटर ऑन आई लुक बैक एंड आई थिंक यार इतना तो बड़ा कुछ नहीं हुआ था. Why did I become so angry? So I became so angry not because of what happened today.
Right.
It was a cumulative effect of everything that happened, and luckily, unluckily, that bucket has already reached its peak.
Right.
It
So,
was full.
an important lesson to take away from here would be forgetting about something doesn't mean you have healed from that thing. Time heals everything is one of the biggest myths that we kind of tell ourselves, right? Time heals everything. The mental emotional wounds that we create, and to kind of take it from that what you mentioned, this bucket, this is not a mental bucket like an imaginary bucket that we are kind of talking about. This bucket is you, your body. We have spoken about how feelings have this dualistic existence, which is body and mind. It has a manifestation in both these areas. When we are talking about that you're suppressing feelings, what you're essentially saying or doing is you're suppressing your body and you to react in the way that feeling or emotion, that chemical was asking you to do. That suppression involves you storing that chemical itself, right? So there is that element of the body as well, where this emotion is not dissipating away. It's not like ab hawa ho gaya.
Yes, Sachin, also it's actually quite simple, right? Though so many people will tell you that when I'm feeling certain emotion that my body feels heavy. The very fact that you're saying my body feels heavy, which means whatever those emotions were, you're storing them somewhere. Now it's
That's
just that
yeah,
over time,
right.
it's just that over time, my body also becomes comfortable with the heaviness. So I don't
Exactly.
realize that I'm feeling that heaviness over a period of time.
So this beautiful point, right? What essentially saying that these chemicals, they are not dissipating, they are stored, they collect over time, and in fact you are utilizing a fair chunk of, so it's not this bottomless pit that we have to imagine. It's this अंधा कुआं जिसमें आप झोंकते जाओ और बंद हो रहा है, नहीं. You're actively using some part of your energy, some part of your cognition to keep on suppressing it on a daily basis. So the example that Nitin you shared right now, like, okay, now I'm going through a good patch or a green time in my life. However, even during this time, because I have stored so many of my emotions and feelings, I haven't processed them, they stay, and there is a reasonable chunk of my cognition, my energy, that is utilized to keep on suppressing that. And that is why when some, even as in the example you gave, even if it's a minor thing, because all of my energy is kind of focused on just keeping the lid on this thing, sometimes even, for example, a happy thing, something that should have made me really happy and excited, can overwhelm me and make me come up with the worst of reaction, at least situationally talking. And we sometimes don't even understand where are these tears coming from. Why my boss have had people shout at me millions of times, but why did this auto guy not giving me change at this point made impact me so much, and I ended up crying and bawling in, or fighting, or wanting to punch the guy in the middle of the road, right? We are not able to, we almost assume that ये तो होता ही है. This heaviness, ये सब जो बोल रहे हैं, this is not a fiction or an imagination that is happening. That it is actually, there is that impact on your body as well as your mind. And the best thing being, there is a way to work through this. You do not have to carry this load. You do not have to, be that koluka bell and keep on carrying this load. And I guess that is where the next part of the conversation also kind of comes in, right?
See, so one, right? When you're experiencing these emotions, it's important to acknowledge that these emotions are serving a purpose and then we need to be able to address them, right? What we're talking about now with respect to release and storage, it's all a part of that long term management. Now, how do you manage these emotions? So, first, understand them. Well, that's the most basic thing. Second, create a distance between you and them so that you can understand them better. So, that's where in the beginning, when Sachin spoke about naming the emotion, plays an important role. The moment I name it, I can create the distance, and now I can say, all right, so I feel anger. What is the purpose that this anger is serving?
Right.
Is there something that this anger is trying to bring to my awareness?
Right. And this is where we face so many challenges. For example, the vocabulary around this is so poor. I'm talking about adults here. That if we are to ask, how are you feeling? Usually that vocabulary hasn't gone beyond acha and bura, good and bad. It hasn't gone beyond that so much. And the point is that we can to make that first step as well, at least some 6 or 4 basic emotions that you can look at. Yes, we have all spoken about it: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, maybe adding disgust and shock to the mix as well. You're kind of beginning this journey. Yes, please, you
See,
have a thought on
broadly, to keep it simple, I actually keep it in that order, right? So, people may find it difficult to name the emotion,
that.
but people find it easy to identify the source of the problem.
Right.
No matter which way you look at it, there are only 4 sources broadly: I, others, situation, and future. Any problem that you will have, you will finally classify them into these categories. So
Perfect.
if you
So
don't
this,
want to go
this
into
is
an
an entry point into understanding your feelings. So one entry point is the body. We are going through the physical sensations, right? A second entry point being here, questioning, having a cognitive, not an argument, but a discussion or an
just an understanding who I think is the source
right. What is the cause of the pain in my life right now?
right now.
And
Correct?
whatever is the answer, it is either going to be I, others, future, or
Situation.
situation.
Right?
And then
So
from that, I can begin my journey.
correct. So
Yes.
I made a mistake. Most of us don't like acknowledging it, some of us do, but at least that's one source.
Mm-hmm.
My boss, my partner, my maid, my driver, they were responsible for the problems that I had. The government is responsible for the problems I have. Others. Okay. COVID happened. I wasn't at fault. I can't really even say who was at fault, but it was just the situation the way it is. Earthquake happened somewhere, right? So it's just the situation. And then I'm worried about something may go wrong in the future. It's not yet happened, so
Mm.
I can't tell you who will be responsible for things going wrong.
Mm.
But I'm concerned something may go wrong in the future. So these
Mm.
are broadly the four forces that you will come up with.
Right.
If I'm responsible for the problem, basically emotion become
Guilt,
guilt,
regret.
regret,
Right.
right? Others are responsible, generally will cause anger
Or disappointment.
or disappointment.
Right.
Situation was responsible, will generally cause a sense of helplessness and
Helpless.
frustration.
Yes.
It's something related to future, will generally be anxiety, fear, or worry.
Right.
Now, these are your very basic emotions. If you just stick to this much, you've got the basic vocabulary to have a conversation with people and with yourself.
So even in so instead of trying to find a solution for someone, when we are helping or helping the person identify what is it that they consider to be their source of discomfort and problem, stress, whatever, that can help us lead or entry again an entry point into that conversation, into feelings. And in through this source of problems entry point, what you're essentially identifying are these four sets of major feelings you enter into: guilt, regret, or you're
Anger,
going into anger, disappointment, or you're going into helplessness and frustration, or
frustration,
you're going into anxiety, worry,
fear.
towards the future. There may be also hopelessness in extreme
Right.
cases, right? So these are the broad spectrum of feelings. And each of
And
these feelings, if you understand and bring distance, you are able to understand the purpose behind it. Like for guilt, and I think that's where you had disconnected there as well.
correct.
So from guilt,
So guilt would be learning. That it's
learning.
trying to tell me don't make the same mistake again. Anger is because some of my expectations are not being fulfilled, which basically means I'm expecting something from someone
Mm,
that they're either incapable of doing
mm,
or they are unwilling to do it,
right.
which then means I'm not able to accept them for who they are.
Right. So if I'm
So,
angry with my partner, now the first question I should possibly be checking, I mean, I have to understand is there is an expectation that I may be having from my partner that is not being met. Right. And I
correct.
remember our lecture as well, where the first question is, does my partner know this expectation?
Correct.
Is
So
it,
one, the moment I do this, the moment I realize that my expectation is not being met and I'm not accepting my partner for who she is
mm,
right now. Now,
mm,
if I'm not accepting her for who she is, and if I'm expecting her to change,
right.
then one, does she even know what change I want her to create? If she doesn't, she can't read my mind, and God bless her for the fact that she can't read my mind,
Hallelujah.
right? So, uh, how else is she going to know it? So, verbalizing in the expression. So,
Mm,
the expression of their expectation. Then comes the next part that even after you express the expectation, many a times your partner does not agree with you,
mm,
right? That's who they are. Now, our problem is we keep thinking someday they will understand.
mm,
So, I am not accepting the fact that
mm,
they have made their choice and this is what they are looking for.
mm,
The moment I accept that, then
mm,
choices for me become clear. Till I don't accept that my partner has already made their choice,
mm.
they understand my expectations and yet they are incapable of fulfilling it or unwilling to fulfill it. Now, if that's the case, then what options do I have? The moment I recognize this, either I would realize that the overall relationship gives me a lot more than what I am losing out of this one expectation.
Mhm.
So I may want to make some
The
tweaks
pros
so
and
that I
cons.
correct so that I can make I can realign my expectation with what my partner can fulfill, given what the overall relationship gives me.
Mm.
Or I may realize that, you know what, no matter what this relationship gives me, this expectation is far more important for me than anything else. Then I also recognize maybe this is not the right relationship for me. Right? Either ways, my mind is trying to bring to my awareness that you have an expectation that is not being fulfilled. Now
Right.
you decide what you want to do. Do you want to realign that expectation with what is being fulfilled?
Mm.
Or do you want to be able to move out of this situation and find a partner who will be able to fulfill that expectation for you?
and
When we say
this
partner,
and this is the conversation that can happen, or this is a conversation that is extremely difficult to have with yourself, right? The level of distance that you are requiring with your own emotion, with your own feeling, with the pressure of the situation, expectation, all of those things. It's again, it's a full cacophony of all of these things happening, right? So in this midst, this is where, for example, a mental health professional comes into the picture, because this objectivity is what is to be expected when you're dealing with a mental health professional. This is what they bring in. This is the subject matter expertise that they bring in when you are going to them. And this is what we mean when we say they are not there to give you solution, opinion, advice, tell you what is right or tell you what is wrong, ethics and moral lessons, or give you wisdom. These are not the things that a mental health professional is there for, right? And sorry, please continue to
so the
kind of
mental
bring
health
that point
professional
up.
is only there to help you achieve this, to help you recognize what is your expectation, to help you do a cause benefit analysis, recognizing all right whether this how important is this expectation in view of everything else that I get in the situation.
Mm,
Based on that, you make a decision, and
mm,
then the mental health practitioner will help you address whatever are the emotional baggages that are stopping you from implementing the decision. So if you
right.
say I want to realign my expectation, but I get very angry,
Mm,
then the mental health professional will help you figure out better ways of being able to manage your emotions so that you are not getting angry as your expectations get realigned. So
right.
whatever is the past baggage gets taken care of.
And
If
when we are
you say, you
talking
know
about
what,
baggage as well, we are essentially talking about those emotions, the stored emotions that
correct,
we were talking about earlier. Mm,
correct. And then the second part can be that there are times when you would want to move out of that equation. You feel I don't want to be with a partner like this. But then I'm worried I'll be all alone in my life. No
there
one
you
will
go.
love me. So all of these emotional baggages that we are carrying, they are stopping us from moving ahead in our life, though we have made the decision that objectively it's good for me to move ahead. The mental health practitioner will help you address that and help you develop the skills required to be able to move ahead.
So
So
would you
that's the
say
role that the mental health practitioner would play over there.
would so essentially what we are saying is these emotions, feelings that you're experiencing, very often the complexity of it, right? Because of the different games that you're playing in your life, the different combinations in which they kind of manifest themselves. Very often, what it leads to is a lack of decision making and action. Right? For us to have a fulfilling life, a happy life, or whatever you are kind of hoping for, there needs to be that movement, that there needs to be that action, there needs to be that work that is being done from you, from these decisions that have to be made and implemented. But very often, these baggage that you're referring to here, these stored emotions, come in the way, complicate the existing thing, due to which very often we may not, for example, even find it difficult to reflect over it or think over it. We may find it extremely difficult to figure out a decision in those situations, and even worse, make any action plan or take that first step. Take that first step into, okay, I want to be a better self, better person, I want to be a happier self, I want to be a richer self, whatever your goal is. Without having an action, this is always just a dream, and that emotional cycle, that repetition of those feelings coming up, this will just keep on continuing. However, to break that cycle, this is that first step, having that conversation, articulation, seeing that there is a distant difference between me and my emotion, my feeling, there is a reason why these things exist. I can take control over them. I can, and going to a mental health professional would usually involve me talking or going through the more one of the more difficult or complicated or icky parts of my life that I usually do not access. So
Correct.
that
But it is
trust.
difficult. So it is
Mm,
difficult and complicated because I'm trying to do it on my own and I don't know how to do it.
exactly.
Going to a practitioner will actually make it easier to go through that conversation.
Right. And different processes, different schools of thoughts will help you, right? In psychology, when you go to a mental health professional as well, everyone's got these different schools of thought, entry points. Like we are saying, there was the physical, there is the source of problem. There are many such more different. And when you're going to a mental health professional, what you're essentially, that person's job will be to educate into how they may go through it, what are the ways or entry points that they have studied, what is the relevance of that methodology to your current condition, and how they see this may be of help. And if you're not convinced, please continue that search. Find someone where you feel that connection, that yes, this what this person said, like for example the source of problems methodology that Nitin mentioned, if you connected with that, then that you will work in that space much more, and these changes that you're hoping to achieve will start
To
manifesting
be
as well.
fair, ideally, mental health practitioners, a good mental health practitioner would be trained to help you figure out a model that works for you. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what model Nitin follows, what model Sachin
I mean,
follows.
just trying to give a kind of an
Correct,
address.
correct, right? But just it's important to realize that, because again here then it becomes that the mental health practitioners selecting the model that we want to introduce to the client. Ideally, that's not the case. The
Right,
model itself gets incorporated based on the conversation the client and the practitioner are having.
right,
Right? Having said that, the broad understanding that we are talking about is actually applicable everywhere.
right.
The anger acceptance phenomena, and then what I want to do with that acceptance. Right? Then came the helplessness part of it.
Mm.
So if situation is a problem and I'm feeling helpless,
We are going to
I
that
think
third point. We move from the anger. With guilt, what you need is alternate behavior. You need a learning, and you need to implement that new learning. With anger, what you need is acceptance, or you need management of your own expectation, right? One
so
of the
acceptance would lead to management of expectations,
perfect.
and then you have a choice whether you want to stay in that equation or you want to move out of that equation.
Perfect.
Right?
And very often this decision itself may be the one thing that I'm trying to avoid, right? And may lead to all of these things. And now the third point, where the situation in my life is what is causing me stress.
Correct. And so that situation is causing me helplessness. I'm feeling helpless because I don't know how to manage the situation,
Right.
which basically means I don't have the skills to manage that situation.
Right.
So if lack of skills is the problem, the solution is
Build that
skill
skill.
development. Now the next step comes, but in order to develop skills, I need to do certain things and I'm not motivated to do it.
Right.
So then motivation will come into play. So the solution then becomes identification of the skills, taking steps to develop those skills, and the motivation required to help you take those steps.
Right. So I think I had remember this example that you had shared as well earlier during COVID. I lost my job, and I'm cursing myself, right? My life, oh, the world is now much more difficult. I don't have a job. I don't know what is going to happen with me. But then that important question is: are there people who are making money in that situation? Yes. Then what is it that is giving them that money, right? There is some skill that they are using that is allowing them to make money. I mean, if money making is your goal, right? If that is not your goal, then work on whatever it is.
Whatever is the goal, there is someone who will be able to do it. And even if someone is not able to do it, the
Right.
question is, do you want to do it? And if you want to do it, then you have two options. You can sit and you can feel worried about things going wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or you can recognize, all right, what steps do I need to take to be able to move on in my life?
Right.
Now, this is where again a practitioner may come handy, because saying it, that all right, I need to find something that will help me move on,
Mm.
and actually being able to find it, and actually being able to let go of whatever are those emotions that are keeping me glued in my current set of problems,
Mm.
may be difficult for certain people to do on their own,
Mm.
right? And then it becomes the practitioner's job to help you achieve that. And then
Perfect.
lastly, we come to the future, right? If I'm if future is a problem, then it's generally anxiety or worry. I am anxious or worried about the future because the future is uncertain.
Right.
Now, there are two parts to this. A part of the future is uncertain simply because I chose not to plan for it. So please plan.
I want to go with the flow. If you want to go with the flow, anxiety may be your good friend.
And if you want to go with the flow, then anxiety is also part of the flow. So if the
Yes.
idea is that I want to learn to enjoy the flow, then you need to learn to develop the skills to be able to become comfortable with that anxiety also.
Right, exactly.
Right? So it's okay if someone comes in, and I've had this conversation with people where people have told me, but Nitin, I've heard you don't need to plan, you need to live in the moment. Okay, I am like that river that flows. Brilliant. So when you are a river that flows, river comes across those stones in between. It doesn't sit and start worrying कि अच्छा stone आ गया बीच में. Then it still keeps going through it till it finds a way. Right? Again, easier said than done. Can you do it on your own? Maybe yes. If not, there is help available. But the idea is that then if that's your objective, then you also need to learn to become comfortable with that anxiety to an extent where you realize it's a part of the process. So again,
Exactly.
I am not anxious. Anxiety is a part of this journey that I'm experiencing, creating a distance between you and that anxiety.
Right. And if you
Or
are having an issue with anxiety, I can do something about it.
correct, you may as well plan thoda sa.
Let
Now,
me
then
add
there's the
some
second part.
structure to my flow.
Correct. And then there's the second part that no matter how much I plan, there will always be things that I can't control.
Right.
And that's what causes me anxiety, which basically means one of two things. Either I don't have the hope that things will work out the way I've planned,
Hmm.
which is one. And second, I don't have the confidence that if things don't work out, then I'll be able to find a way around it.
Right. Or
Right?
just my confidence in my plan is not there. Like I don't believe my plan will work.
Correct. So that lack of belief in your plan for me would again get classified as hope that things will happen as per my plan. Right?
Right.
So if that is the case, so either plan,
Hmm.
and if you've planned, then you're looking at being able to develop hope and confidence. Hope that plan will work and confidence that if it doesn't work, I'll find a way around it.
Hmm.
Right? Now that gives you the solution point. But all right, so if I'm anxious about the future, this is about the future. Then this. Now all of these emotions that we've spoken about till now, these are all from a rational point of view.
Hmm.
They can also be emotions which are irrational.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For example, um, I feel anxious even in a situation where I logically know I should not feel anxious.
Right. So when
Someone
we
may
are
say,
defining rational and irrational, we are not talking about the validity of emotions being there or not there. We are talking about the source of it. The stimuli that is supposed to be responsible for it doesn't match the
the
response.
intensity of the emotion.
Right.
Right? And again, who decides that? Only the person who's feeling it.
Right.
So let's say there's someone that you're talking to, and they say the moment I look at cockroach, I don't know what happens to me.
Mm.
Retrospectively, I know इतना सा है, क्या ही कर लेगा. But जब सामने आता है, all this logic, all this wisdom goes out of window.
Mm.
Now, this is a good example of an irrational emotion. Why?
Mm.
Because logically, I'm telling myself I should not be so afraid. But when that when that cockroach comes, I don't even realize the fact that it's so small. Something happens to me,
Right.
right? For those emotions, this model will not work that we've spoken about.
Right.
But for those emotions, please visit a therapist.
So when we are talking about if you are able to have a, and again this control, these these words that we are utilizing here, we are nowhere talking about strength, weakness. It's nowhere referring to how good you are, how strong you are, how brilliant you are, how effective or efficient you are. These are not the labels kind of we are referring to. We are essentially just like we would have been talking about your arms or legs, or in terms of any physical exercise that we would have been talking about, and there you would need them to operate in the most optimum condition. And how can you, yeah.
Sorry, this idea about strength, there is nothing called as someone having strength in every area or someone having weakness in every area.
Right.
Some of the people that you will feel have the capability to move mountains
Hmm.
are very afraid of cockroaches,
There you go.
right? So now will you call them weak or will you call them strong?
No, exactly. That is the whole point that we are trying to make, right?
Right.
That
So
weakness strength association is going to create a lot more problem for you. In
that,
fact, it can even come in the way of you asking help. If I consider this as weakness or strength, if I find myself too strong, I will not go to take help. And the same way, if I find myself too weak, I find it much more difficult to ask for help. I don't want to have people see me in this weak situation. So please kind of, if possible, do not associate the conversation that we are having today in terms of strength and weakness in those binaries, but rather in terms of skills and tools that you have and that you have access to and that can be available to you.
And emotions are like anything else. Even when we talk about strength and weakness, if I'm physically feeling weak
Mm,
and I'm not able to exercise,
right.
right? Uh, I may seek help of a yoga practitioner or a gym instructor to tell me what needs to be done, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I was physically feeling weak
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still willing to seek help,
Mm,
right? So, again, a lot of these conversations are conversations that we have to convince ourselves to not go ahead and seek help. It's as simple as this. If there's something that you want to do is good for you, you feel you're not able to do it on your own, please seek help. Period. Whatever it could be, whether it's going for a gym, whether it's exercising, whether it's dieting, whether it's just learning to enjoy your life.
mm-hmm. Awesome. And maybe this may be a good time to kind of leave with Visit MHP as well. We have also the Connect Hut resources available, which we will be sharing with when the video is being shared. We will be putting it in our description. So there is, if you can share more about Visit MHP, Nitin.
There are a few things now. So there is Visit MHP One, which is a platform which has been created to create awareness about the importance of visiting a mental health practitioner, not only when you have a disorder, but even if you're living a happy life and you
Hmm.
want to make the life happier,
Hmm.
a therapist can actually help you, right? So the
Oh, Nitin, your voice. The net. I'm not sure if it's just me who cannot see Nitin. Ah, there he is.
visible now.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So where was I? Till where did you hear me?
Platform number one.
Ah. So Visit MHP, the platform was created to move conversations about mental health from mental illness also towards mental well-being. Okay? So that's one platform that we have. It's also a platform that we are building up as a community and peer learning platform for psychologists and psychology students, which in the coming days we will have more announcements to make about. Then there's the Meet Goals app that is right
Meet
around the
goals
corner.
app.
Correct. So it's basically a self-help. It's an app to help you uh, understand yourself better. There are a lot of self-help tools on it. There are guided meditations, hypnotic processes. So the app is divided in these different sections, which can help you improve your emotional and mental health. Plus, there's an option to connect to practitioners,
Wonderful.
right? So that's the second. And then iChas obviously is there, which is focused on helping practitioners develop advanced skills.
And this is also an interesting thing, right? Like for those who may be actually interested in learning more yourself, I mean, yes, that is also an option available for you. Connect Hut, iCharts, we are always also an organization that works in space of training people. And if this is the space that you would like to have more information and credible information rather than hashtag psychology facts or hashtag psychology says, and actually learn something that can help you make a change in your own life and others around you, please do hit us up and we will get more information on the same in the video content as well. But again, fantastic conversation, Nitin. Absolutely lovely connecting as always on this.
Pleasure, sir.
Um, we will request our audience to keep sharing any topics or any areas in the space of mental emotional well-being or on the poor health side. If anything that you want to get us to speak on, please feel free to reach out and we would love to add them in a set of videos and conversations that in the future. So thank you again, Nitin. Any final words from you before we leave?
Thank you. No, I think this was an interesting conversation. We have covered most of the things, at least as far as understanding emotions are concerned. Uh, Techniques to manage emotions, maybe we can discuss another day,
We
another
can
time, because that
definitely
can
have a
itself could
session.
be another big topic.
And I guess that's something that people, if you are interested, if you would like to know some more about the different techniques that may be available, because when we spoke about emotional management, Nathan quite mentioned about at least around 4 or 5 aspects, right from awareness and articulation to the space of managing and release, all of those aspects that are coming up. You want to know more about the techniques, at least some of the techniques that you can add and make a part of your routine as well. Please share, comment or write to us, and we will definitely add such a session. Or you can definitely, in the meantime, reach out to Visit MHP or the Connect Hut for getting through to a mental health professional yourself too. So with that, thank you so much,
Thank
Nitin.
you. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye, everyone.